formerly known as a frontier market, but it's actually making its way as an emerging market. Hopefully in about 60 years, it'll become a developed economy. Nice. Hopefully in about 100 years it will. So we're going to talk about my home country of Colombia. Okay, so some fun facts. The country is actually named after explorer Christopher Columbus. Date of independence, July 20th, 1810 from Spain. And it was actually originally part of Gran Colombia, which consisted of 3 countries, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Panama, and Colombia being the main country. That was the dream of our liberator, Simón Bolívar, but it didn't work out. So 20 years later, as you guys may know now, the Venezuela and Ecuador separated, and then with the Panama Canal fiasco, we also lost Panama. But that's besides the point. So here's the map. I'm gonna talk about geography. Actually, it's pretty cool because Colombia is the only country in South America that has borders with the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. So we are akin to the United States, where you guys have the East Coast with the Atlantic Ocean, and then the West Coast with the Pacific Ocean. No, but it's part of the Atlantic Ocean though. You can look it up, bro. I did, man. Don't try to talk to me about this, man.
It's not the Caribbean.
They're Navy guys.
All right, so the border countries, Brazil, Ecuador, Panama, Peru, and Venezuela. And the climate, it varies. You know, you got hot weather from where I'm from the North Coast. And then towards the middle, you got cities like the capital that's actually 2,600 above sea level. So it's pretty cold out there. So like I said, only South American country with coastlines on both the North Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea, which is part of the Atlantic Ocean, by the way. All right, so population, approximately 47 million to 2016. Ethnic groups, white and mestizo, 84%. Afro-Colombian, 10%, and Amerindian, 3.4%. Fun fact, Colombia is actually the second country with the most African descendant people after the US. So we do have big influence of African culture in Colombia. So this is what you guys were wondering what.
Even more than Cuba?
Yeah, because in the big spectrum of things, our population is a lot higher than.
Okay, by number.
So,
okay.
Mestizos are people that are descendant from white Spaniards and the local Indians that used to live there when Christopher Columbus came around. When Christopher Columbus came around, language Spanish. Catholic is the most prominent religion that's inherent from the Spaniards. And this is very important. The population growth rate is 1.2%, and that actually ties in with why Colombia is actually considered an emerging market. Okay. So first factor, urbanization. 76% of the total population actually lives in the city, and it has a growing rate of 1.66%. All right. Then you got some major urban areas. I'm from here, guys, by the way. Beautiful city, if you guys ever got the chance. But education expenditure is 4.5% of GDP, which is very important because that comes to show the quality of the human capital that Colombia has, right? 94% of the population is literate, and literacy is defined by people that know how to write and read. That's above the age of 15, right? So education is very important in Colombia. Factors why Colombia is considered, and it would be wise to invest in as an emerging market. It's a market economy, so the laws are very lax. You know, the government actually supports foreign investment. Foreign investment is highly encouraged, government support of foreign companies, and open trade is allowed. The tariff rate is only 4.2%, which in the big spectrum of things, that's a really, really low rate as compared to more conservative countries, right? So companies can save a lot of money on that. GDP, 282 billion, and it's actually ranked number 3 in South America behind Brazil and Argentina, and it's actually ranked 30th in the world. And I'm gonna go over this graph right here, which is very interesting to me. As you can see, the economy the GDP growth was kind of low, and then it actually slowed down a lot in 2009, but it's actually picking back up. So the trend shows that the GDP is constantly growing, right? And especially nowadays that political problems are being solved in Colombia, as far as the civil war that we've been in for over 60 years that actually got resolved. It's going to bring more stability, and it's probably going to bring in a lot more investors. So inflation and unemployment, as you can see, we have a very low inflation rate. It's only 1.4%, which gives people more spending power, which that means you have a lot more customers with more money that are willing to invest in your products, right? And then the unemployment rate is 8.7%, which that means that a lot of people are unemployed that can be cheap labor for companies if they decide to invest, right?
Can you tell me about the techniques that you use to make that classification of the country?
Techniques that I use, I basically looked at the GDP. I looked at the trend and how the GDP was developing over the past 20 years. And from what I noticed is that the GDP, even though it goes down some years, is constantly going up. So the trend is that the GDP is going up. Exports are going up, foreign investment is going up, and increase of infrastructure is also happening throughout the country. So highways are being built, making it easier as far as logistics are concerned, and most importantly, low labor costs. 85% of the population makes about $300 a month. So if a company decides to invest over there, they can save a lot of money on labor for high qualified people.
That's the thing. It's like, are we talking about what is like the capabilities? In Module 1, we were talking about that intellectual capabilities. The type of workers, like for instance in Brazil, they have a huge, but pretty high amount of technical and intermediate type of workers. Okay, and every time the more developed a country becomes, the more we need, especially with the trends that are coming. Where is the money? The money is like in the industry of like technological industry, not only just super great nanotechnology, like the example that you gave, but mobile devices, computerized. For you to be able to manage a computer, you need to know how to read, and you need to, so it comes up. Okay, people who have got more education can be more like using machines as well that are much more complicated. So that's a good point. So actually, those you are not talking so much about the techniques, but about the factors. That was my question. It's like, give me 3 reasons. I am an investor, and I'm thinking about doing business in Latin America, South America specifically, and I don't want to go to Brazil.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm a Spaniard. What country could you say? Oh, Colombia. Okay, very good.
I didn't want to stretch it out, but here, guys. So the main factors: government support, low taxes, low tariffs, the steady GDP growth, as well as decrease of inflation, and high literacy rate, as well as a young medium age. I think the median age of the country is like 27 years old, I believe. So there's a lot of people that can be hired for low wages. Give us some money in Colombia. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Do you agree that Colombia is an emerging country or a frontier country?
I believe so. I believe he's very correct.
Do you think that we can consider it within emerging country, not frontier country?
Well, I think you can consider it an emerging country because of the fact that the population, their economy, their gross national products net worth is in the tier of emerging market companies, which means that they only produce this much. They don't produce like China or the Western countries. They're limited in their GDP output. So therefore, they have to be an emerging market, because if you don't produce, how can you be considered anything else?
You know, I'd say it's more like of a frontier country that's in the early stages of being
yeah.
an
You know.
emerging country.
Okay, that's much more accurate.
That's what I was about to say too.
Very good.
Social, economic, and political.
The
emergence.
but that we have before, it was like the instability.
Yes.
This is one of the key factors. How stable, what is like this? Are they in war? Are they gonna come in war? No, actually Colombia is becoming much more
Don't
stable.
encourage that guy over there.